My husband passed away unexpectedly, and when I came back home from his funeral, I found my mother-in-law sitting in my living room, sipping wine like she owned the place. She looked at me with a smirk and told me this mansion was now hers. Stay with me through this story, because it's one you won't forget. My name is Danielle Harper. I'm 34 years old, and just a few days ago, I buried the love of my life, Marcus. He was only 38 when a car accident took him from me, and my world shattered in a single moment. Marcus was my partner, my best friend, and the man who believed in building a life with me. We had worked side by side to buy this house together. Every brick, every corner of this mansion carried pieces of our journey, our laughter, our arguments, our dreams. But Marcus's mother, Loretta Harper, never liked me. From the day we met, she made sure I felt like an outsider. She believed I wasn't good enough for her son, and no matter how much Marcus stood up for me, her cold eyes and sharp words never softened. Still, I never imagined that on the very day I returned from laying Marcus to rest, I would walk into my home and find her acting like the queen of it. The sight broke me in ways I didn't know were possible. Loretta had her feet propped up on the coffee table, a glass of Marcus's favorite wine in her hand, and she was looking around like she was inspecting her new kingdom. I remember standing there, frozen, tears still fresh on my face, as she said, "Marcus always promised me this house. He would have wanted me to have it." I wanted to scream, but no words came out. The mansion wasn't just a house, it was our love story written in stone. Marcus and I both had our names on the deed. It was ours, not hers. Yet Loretta spoke with such confidence, as if my grief and my rights didn't matter. I tried to remind myself that maybe grief was twisting her judgment. Maybe she was hurting in her own way. But deep down, I knew this wasn't just sorrow. This was Loretta being who she always was, controlling, entitled, and determined to push me out of Marcus's life even after his death. As I looked around the room, I felt this wave of anger mixing with my pain. Marcus wasn't here to protect me anymore, and that realization cut deeper than anything Loretta could ever say. For the first time since his passing, I knew I had to stand on my own. This mansion wasn't hers. It was mine. It was ours. And I wasn't going to let anyone steal Marcus's last gift to me. That night, I wiped my tears and whispered to myself, "Not this time, Loretta. Not this time." The days after Marcus's funeral felt like a blur. I was still waking up at night, reaching across the bed for him, only to find cold sheets and silence. My grief was heavy, but somehow Loretta made it even harder to breathe. She didn't just visit the mansion. She moved in without asking, walking through the halls as if she had been crowned the owner. At first, I thought it was temporary. Maybe she needed comfort. Maybe she didn't want to be alone. But I quickly realized that wasn't the case. One afternoon, I walked into the bedroom and saw her dragging my clothes out of the closet, piling them into bags as if I was being evicted. My dresses, my shoes, even Marcus's jacket that still smelled like him. It was all tossed aside. I rushed forward and grabbed the clothes from her hands, my voice shaking. "What do you think you're doing?" She looked at me with that same smug expression she always wore. "A widow shouldn't live in luxury," she said coldly. "You should move somewhere smaller. This house was meant for family, not for you to sit here pretending to be the queen." Her words cut deep. I was still struggling to even get out of bed in the mornings, still learning how to breathe without Marcus. Now here she was, treating me like I didn't belong in the very home Marcus and I built together. I tried to reason with her, to remind her this mansion was legally mine as much as it was his. But she just laughed, a bitter, mocking sound that made my skin crawl. "You were never good enough for Marcus," she spat, her eyes narrowing. "Everyone knows he settled. You think he married you for love? No, sweetheart, you just got lucky. And now you're lucky he died when he did, because that's the only reason you're standing here." I froze. For a moment, I couldn't believe the words that left her mouth. Lucky. Lucky that my husband, the love of my life, had died? I wanted to scream at her, to throw her out of the house right then and there. But grief had weakened me, and all I could do was shake my head, whispering, "You're wrong." Loretta didn't stop. She leaned closer, lowering her voice like she was sharing a secret. "Marcus only left you with this house because he didn't have time to change it. If he had lived longer, he would have made things right. He would have given it to me, his blood. Not you." Her manipulation twisted inside me like a knife. I knew Marcus loved me, but she was planting seeds of doubt when I was at my most vulnerable. She wanted me to question everything, to crumble so she could swoop in and take control. That night, I sat alone in the empty living room, hugging one of Marcus's old sweaters to my chest. The house felt colder, darker, with Loretta in it. For the first time, I realized she wasn't just here to grieve her son, she was here to erase me. And I knew if I didn't find my strength soon, she would succeed. I had finally reached my breaking point. After days of watching Loretta act like the mansion was hers, I knew I couldn't just sit back and let her keep trampling over me. One morning, I walked into the kitchen where she was drinking coffee and laid the deed flat on the table in front of her. My hands trembled, but my voice was steady. Do you see this? Both Marcus's name and mine are on this deed. This house belongs to me as much as it ever did to him. You have no right to claim it. She barely glanced at the paper. Instead, she gave me a look filled with disdain and pushed the deed back toward me like it was worthless. Paper doesn't matter when blood does, she said, her tone dripping with contempt. Marcus was my son. His blood runs through me, not you. You were just a woman he picked up along the way. Family always comes first. Her words burned, but what stung worse was how quickly others began to echo her sentiments. Marcus's cousin, Devin, showed up the following day, grinning like a snake in a suit that didn't quite fit him. He had always been the kind of man who looked for opportunities in other people's tragedies, and I could see it in his eyes. He smelled money. He walked through the house slowly, nodding at the furniture, running his fingers along the walls, as though he were already picturing his share of it. Loretta's right, he said finally, turning to me. You should think about what's fair for the family. You don't need a place this big all to yourself. Maybe it's time you showed some respect to Marcus's bloodline. I wanted to scream. I wanted to throw both of them out and lock every door behind them. But when I looked around, I realized more of Marcus's relatives were starting to gather in the house, sitting quietly, watching me with disapproving eyes. They whispered among themselves, shaking their heads as though I was the villain for even daring to stand up for myself. Be respectful to Marcus's mother. One of his aunts whispered as I passed her in the hallway. Another muttered, she's grieving. Let her have this. But what about me? Was I not grieving too? Did my pain suddenly become invisible just because I wasn't his blood? It felt like I was fighting a war alone in my own home, surrounded by people who wanted to see me erased. People who believed my marriage to Marcus meant nothing compared to the ties of blood. That night, I sat at the dining table with the deed clutched in my hands, tears streaming down my face. The paper was real, the law was on my side, but in that moment, it felt powerless against the weight of family pressure. And deep down, I knew Loretta was counting on that, on isolating me until I gave up. But something inside me whispered not to surrender. Not yet. The situation in the house only grew worse with every passing day. Loretta was no longer just occupying the mansion. She was claiming it piece by piece, like a thief who took what wasn't hers but did it openly, without shame. One evening, I came home from the grocery store, exhausted and still heavy with grief, only to hear loud laughter echoing from the dining room. Confused, I stepped inside and froze. Strangers, people I had never met before, were sitting around the dining table where Marcus and I had once shared our quiet dinners. Plates and glasses from my kitchen were spread out in front of them, and Loretta stood at the head of the table, smiling like she was the proud hostess of a grand event. The humiliation burned deep. These people looked at me like I was the intruder, as though I was stepping into someone else's home. My chest tightened, and I asked, "What is going on here?" Loretta didn't even flinch. She simply turned to me and said, "Family deserves to feel welcome here. This house was Marcus's heritage, and I intend to honor it. You should be grateful I'm keeping his memory alive." I couldn't find words. I felt like my place, my identity, was being stripped away in front of strangers. That night, I sat alone in my bedroom, listening to their laughter echo through the halls until it died down. It was as though I was a guest in my own home. The next blow came when I walked into the living room a few days later. The shelves that once held our wedding photos, pictures of Marcus and me smiling on vacations, framed memories of our life together, were all gone. My heart skipped as I scanned the room, only to find them replaced with childhood portraits of Marcus, photos of him as a boy, pictures Loretta had pulled out of old albums. It was as though she wanted to erase me completely from his story. I rushed upstairs to check the photo albums Marcus and I had built together, only to find them missing too. Panic gripped me as I searched, and eventually, I found them stuffed into a box in the back of a closet, as though they were garbage. My hands shook as I flipped through the pages, my tears staining the images of our wedding day. That was supposed to be our legacy, our life. But Loretta was rewriting it, reshaping Marcus into a man who had never truly shared a life with me. The more I tried to speak up, the more she dismissed me. "You were only a chapter in his life," she sneered one night. "But I'm his beginning. I'll be his ending too." Her words pierced deeper than anything else she had done. It wasn't just about the mansion anymore. It was about Marcus, about his memory, about the love we had built. And as I stood in the empty space where our wedding photo had once hung, I realized that if I didn't fight back soon, Loretta wouldn't just steal my home. She would erase me from Marcus's life altogether. It was late one night when I reached my lowest point. The mansion was quiet except for the sound of my footsteps echoing against the marble floor. I couldn't sleep, so I wandered the halls, clutching Marcus's old sweater, trying to hold on to the last pieces of him I still felt. That's when I heard Loretta's voice drifting from the study. At first, I thought she was just talking to herself, but then I realized she was on the phone. I froze outside the door, her words slicing through me like knives. "Marcus never loved her," she said coldly. "Danielle was just convenient, someone to keep him company until he came to his senses. She thinks that house was meant for her? Please." He pitied her, that's all. My stomach turned, and the sweater slipped from my hands onto the floor. Tears blurred my vision as I pressed my palm to my mouth to keep from sobbing out loud. Loretta wasn't just trying to take the house. She was trying to destroy the memory of my marriage, the love Marcus and I shared. She wanted me to believe I had been nothing to him, that my years with him were meaningless. I stumbled back to my room, my heart pounding like it would burst from my chest. The pain was unbearable. For a moment, I thought maybe she was right. Maybe Marcus had seen me as just someone to fill a space in his life. Maybe I wasn't enough. The weight of her words crushed me until I slid down against the wall, hugging my knees, crying until my throat ached. The thought of leaving crossed my mind. I imagined packing a suitcase, walking out of the house, letting Loretta have it all just so I wouldn't have to hear her poison anymore. For a few seconds, the idea almost felt like relief. But then I remembered Marcus, his laughter, his late-night talks about the future, the way he would hold my hand and promise me that this house was our sanctuary. He had worked himself to the bone so we could live here. Every long shift, every sacrifice, every moment he spent planning with me, it was all for us. For me. I could hear his voice in my head, steady and sure, saying, "This home is ours, Danny. Don't let anyone take it away from you." And suddenly, the fog of doubt began to clear. Loretta's words were lies, twisted to break me. Marcus loved me. I knew it in my soul. The way he looked at me, the way he fought for us, the way he built this life. None of that could ever be erased, no matter what she said. That night, I wiped my tears and stood in front of the mirror. My eyes were swollen, my heart still heavy, but there was a spark inside me that hadn't been there before. I whispered to my reflection, "I won't be bullied out. Not now. Not ever." And for the first time since Marcus's death, I felt a sliver of strength return. One restless afternoon, after another argument with Loretta about the house, I found myself wandering into Marcus's study. It was the one room she hadn't dared to touch yet, and stepping inside felt like stepping into his presence. The faint smell of his cologne lingered in the air, and the desk still had his scattered papers, just as he had left them. My hands trembled as I reached for the drawer, unsure what I was even looking for. Maybe I just needed something, anything, to remind me that I wasn't losing my mind. I began sifting through folders, bills, and old notes until I stumbled upon a manila envelope tucked beneath a stack of files. My heart skipped when I saw Marcus's handwriting across the front. I slid it open and pulled out a series of letters. As I read, my breath caught in my throat. They were addressed to a lawyer, dated just weeks before his accident. In those letters, Marcus was in the process of updating his will. Every word was clear, every sentence deliberate. He wanted everything left to me. Not to his mother, not to any other relative. Just me. My fingers traced the ink as if I could feel his intentions through the paper. Tears welled in my eyes as I kept reading. He had written about the house specifically, how much it meant to us, how he wanted me to feel secure no matter what happened to him. He even mentioned that Loretta could be difficult, and that he wanted to protect me from any disputes. The will hadn't been finalized, but these documents were undeniable proof of his wishes. As I set the letters aside, something else slipped out of the envelope, a folded note, handwritten in Marcus's familiar scrawl. My chest tightened as I opened it. "This home is for you," it read. "Don't let anyone take it from you." I pressed the note to my chest, sobbing, the kind of sobs that come from deep within, the kind that hurt but also heal. For days, Loretta's words had been echoing in my head, making me question everything I had shared with Marcus. But here was the truth, written in his own hand. He loved me. He trusted me. He wanted me to fight for the life we built together. I sat there in the study for what felt like hours, the papers spread out before me, my heart filling with something stronger than grief, resolve. Loretta could scream, she could manipulate, she could twist the story however she wanted, but the truth was in my hands now. Marcus's voice was in those letters, guiding me, reminding me that I wasn't alone. By the time I left the study, my tears had dried. I tucked the note safely into my pocket close to my heart and whispered, "I hear you, Marcus. I won't let them take it." For the first time since his death, I felt not just sorrow but strength. The next morning, I woke up with Marcus's note still tucked under my pillow. I couldn't keep hiding the truth anymore. It was time to face Loretta head-on. I found her in the living room, sitting comfortably in Marcus's favorite armchair, flipping through a magazine like she had already settled in for good. My heart pounded in my chest, but I forced myself to stand tall. "I need you to see something," I said, my voice trembling but steady enough to hold her attention. I placed the letters from the lawyer on the coffee table, then carefully unfolded Marcus's handwritten note. Marcus updated his will. He wanted everything left to me. He wrote this note for me, Loretta. He wanted me to protect this home. Her eyes narrowed as she leaned forward to read, but instead of softening, her face twisted into rage. She slapped the papers back onto the table like they were trash. "You think this proves anything?" she snapped. "You probably manipulated him into writing this. You always knew how to play the victim, Danielle. You fooled my son into thinking he owed you everything." Her words lit a fire inside me. Manipulated him? Are you serious? Marcus loved me. We built this life together. This was our home. He wanted me to have it because he trusted me, not because I tricked him. The air grew thick with tension as her voice rose into a scream. "Don't you dare talk back to me in my son's house. He would still be alive if it weren't for you. You stressed him, you drained him, and you killed him." The accusation struck me like a physical blow. For a moment, I couldn't breathe. My legs threatened to give out beneath me. I had spent every waking moment since his death blaming myself, wondering if I could have done something different, if I could have stopped him from driving that night. Hearing her spit those words ripped open a wound I had been trying so hard to close. But then I saw the look in her eyes, not grief, not sorrow, but pure venom. This wasn't about Marcus. This was about power. She wanted control, she wanted the mansion, and she was willing to weaponize my pain to get it. I straightened my back, swallowing down the tears burning at the edge of my eyes. "You don't get to rewrite Marcus's love for me," I said quietly but firmly. "You don't get to stand here and pretend this is about him when all you care about is what you can take." Loretta's face twisted, her voice rising again, but I didn't let her words sink in this time. For the first time, I saw her clearly, not as a grieving mother, but as a woman consumed by greed and control. As I gathered the papers and held Marcus's note close to my chest, I knew this was only the beginning of the fight. But something had shifted inside me. Loretta could scream all she wanted. Her lies no longer held power over me. Danielle knew she couldn't afford another emotional confrontation without preparation. Loretta had the sharper tongue, the crueler words, and the shameless audacity that could twist any situation against her. But Danielle had something Loretta didn't, truth, and she was determined to wield it like a blade. Quietly, she made her way downtown and entered the office of Angela Price, a woman Marcus had once recommended if they ever needed legal advice. Angela was everything Loretta wasn't, calm, sharp, and quietly intimidating. Dressed in a navy blue suit, her eyes flickered with curiosity as Danielle placed Marcus's note, the unprocessed will, and a folder of his financial statements on the polished desk. Danielle's voice trembled as she spoke, but Angela listened intently, her pen moving across her notepad with precision. When Danielle finished, Angela leaned back and said with measured confidence, "You've got more than sentiment here. You've got leverage. Let's build this case brick by brick." Together, they dug deeper. Danielle returned to Marcus's study, scouring every drawer, cabinet, and locked box with Angela's guidance. She discovered transfer records, official documents showing Marcus had already moved the mansion's ownership to her name months before his death. It wasn't a promise, it was a fact. Her heart raced as she realized Loretta had been strutting around and claiming authority in a house that legally wasn't hers anymore. But the discoveries didn't stop there. Old bank statements revealed something darker. Marcus's accounts had been steadily drained in the year before his death, with withdrawals that didn't align with his spending habits. Angela traced the patterns and quickly spotted the culprits, transfers that led directly to Loretta and Devin. They had been siphoning Marcus's money behind his back while he battled illness, hiding their greed under the guise of family support. Danielle felt a sickness churn in her stomach. It wasn't just about control. Loretta and her son had been parasites, feeding off Marcus until his very last breath. The rage that once paralyzed Danielle now turned into fuel. This wasn't just about defending her home anymore. It was about defending Marcus's honor. He had worked tirelessly, loved her deeply, and trusted the people closest to him, only to be betrayed. She wouldn't let his memory rot under Loretta's lies. Angela laid out the next steps like a general preparing for war. We'll secure the property deed in your name officially, so Loretta can't contest it. We'll gather every piece of evidence of financial fraud. And when the time comes, we'll strike, quietly, decisively, and in a way she'll never recover from. Danielle nodded, her grief sharpening into resolve. Loretta thought she had broken her, but Marcus's words echoed in her heart. This home is for you. Don't let anyone take it from you. For the first time since his death, Danielle didn't feel powerless. She had Marcus's love, the law, and her own determination on her side. And now, she had a plan, one that would turn Loretta's schemes into her downfall. The family gathered on a Sunday afternoon, the air heavy with grief disguised as civility. Danielle sat quietly at the edge of the living room, watching as Loretta paraded about in her usual grandeur. She wore a deep burgundy dress, jewelry clinking like trophies, and her voice rose above the murmurs of cousins, uncles, and aunts who had come to check in on the family after Marcus's death. Devin lingered nearby, smug as always, a glass of whiskey in his hand. Then Loretta stood, commanding silence with a practiced smile. I've made a decision, she announced. This house, Marcus's house, my son's legacy, will be sold. It's too much for Danielle to handle alone, and the money will be better used to support family needs. Her tone carried false sweetness, but the implication was sharp. Danielle was about to lose everything. The room buzzed with murmurs of surprise and approval. Danielle's hands trembled in her lap, but she steadied herself, remembering Angela's words. This is your moment. Don't flinch. Slowly, she rose, her lawyer by her side. The chatter died down as all eyes turned toward her. Actually, Danielle said, her voice steady despite the hammering in her chest, that decision isn't yours to make, Loretta. She reached into her folder and pulled out documents, holding them high for everyone to see. This house legally belongs to me. Marcus transferred ownership months before he passed. And here, she unfolded a handwritten note, is his message to me. He wrote, this home is for you. Don't let anyone take it from you. Gasps filled the room. Loretta's face twisted, her smile collapsing into a snarl. You manipulative little witch, she spat, stepping forward. You tricked my son into this. Everyone knows Marcus was weak from illness. You pushed him until it killed him. Danielle flinched but stood her ground. Angela, ever composed, laid more documents on the coffee table for the family to see, bank statements, transfer records, undeniable proof. Not only is this home Danielle's property, Angela said clearly, but Loretta and Devin have been siphoning Marcus's money for over a year. Thousands of dollars. Stolen while he was dying. The room erupted. Aunts who had nodded at Loretta now whispered furiously. Cousins glared at Devin, who shifted uncomfortably under the weight of their stares. An uncle barked. Is this true, Loretta? You stole from your own son. Loretta's shriek cut through the room like glass shattering. Lies. All lies. Danielle, you'll regret humiliating me like this. You think this family will ever stand with you. But the tide had turned. Devin avoided her gaze, clearly rattled by the exposure. Danielle, her hands no longer shaking, lifted her chin. I don't need anyone to stand with me. Marcus entrusted me with this life, this home. And I will protect it, just as he wanted. The silence that followed was thick with judgment, not for Danielle, but for Loretta. For the first time, Danielle saw fear flicker in her mother-in-law's eyes. The battle wasn't over, but the power had shifted. Marcus's voice, through his words and his will, had spoken louder than Loretta's schemes ever could. The day the court order arrived, Danielle stood at the doorway of the mansion with a mixture of relief and sorrow tightening her chest. Loretta, once so commanding and entitled, now looked small as officers escorted her out with a single suitcase. Her fury was still sharp. She hissed curses under her breath, promising Danielle would pay someday, but her power was gone. The law was clear. She was barred from stepping foot on the property again. For the first time since Marcus's funeral, the house felt lighter, as if the very walls could breathe again. Devin wasn't as lucky either. The evidence Angela had collected sealed his fate: bank records, forged signatures, and transfers he thought no one would ever uncover. Charges were filed, and the whispers in the family grew louder until no one wanted to be associated with him. Danielle didn't smile when she heard the news. It wasn't joy she felt, but justice. Devin had betrayed Marcus's trust while pretending to be family, and now he would answer for it. When the dust settled, Danielle finally walked through the mansion alone. Each room still carried Marcus's presence, but now it was hers to honor, not something Loretta could erase. She began carefully restoring the pieces Loretta had stripped away. Wedding photos went back on the walls, Marcus's books returned to the shelves, and the watch he always left by the bedside was placed neatly where it belonged. Slowly, the house transformed back into a home, not a battleground. In the dining room, Danielle paused by the table where Loretta had once entertained strangers, acting like queen of a kingdom that was never hers. Danielle ran her hand across the polished wood, whispering, "It's ours again, Marcus. Just like you wanted." Her voice cracked, but there was strength in it too. She could almost hear him in the silence, reassuring, proud. Later that evening, Danielle stood by the window of the master bedroom, the city lights glowing in the distance. She thought of everything she had endured: grief, humiliation, betrayal, and how Loretta had tried to strip her not just of her home, but of her identity as Marcus's wife. Yet here she stood, stronger than before. Her revenge hadn't come from shouting or cruelty, but from surviving every attempt to break her. "I kept my promise," she whispered into the night. "No one took this from us." Tears slid down her cheeks, but this time they weren't from pain, they were from release. She finally felt Marcus's memory was safe, not tarnished by Loretta's venom. Danielle realized then that her greatest victory wasn't proving ownership on paper or even exposing Loretta and Devin. Her real revenge was showing she could rise above, that she had a resilience Loretta never expected. She had endured loss, fought back against cruelty, and claimed her place not as a widow cast aside, but as the woman Marcus had loved and trusted with everything. And in that quiet moment, Danielle knew she had won. Do you think Danielle was right to stand her ground and fight for the home she built with Marcus? Or should she have just walked away to avoid all the conflict? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. And if stories like this keep you hooked, don't forget to hit subscribe, drop a like, and turn on the notification bell so you never miss the next one.